All right, peace and blessings, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. I am pleased to welcome you to Masjid Taqwa's Talem for the day. Dr. Aisha Alameen, and I serve as the chair of the Talem committee. So I want to welcome you on behalf of the resident Imam Tariq Alameen, along with the Talem committee, which includes Rashida Fitzpatrick, Dr. Lionel Allen, and Dr. Gloria Bashir. If you did not notice, there was a little recording that said we are now recording. So please note that we do record Taleems as well as khutbahs. If you have not already subscribed, please do so on Masjid Al Taqwa's YouTube page, where you can find this Taleem and other Taleems as well as our khutbahs. Today, I have the absolute honor and pleasure of introducing and having a conversation with our dear sister, Cretia Rasul. Cretia is the assistant principal at U47, the second largest school district in Illinois. And she is a student at Hampton University getting her PhD. I was very honored that she asked me to be part of her journey. And I think that us knowing about her journey can help us along in our journey and in our understandings as we negotiate this educational space. I know I see at least one other person who is about to start their PhD on the Zoom today. And so I'm hopeful that we can share some experiences that will make that path a little bit easier. And so, Cretia, I'd like to just start off by if you can tell us a little bit more about who you are, and then we'll kind of get started.
Absolutely. So, assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Cretia. I have a bachelor's degree in organizational communication from Northern Illinois University. I went back to school to become a teacher and got my master's in elementary education from University of Phoenix. And then I went back again to become an educational leader and went to National Louis, where I got my educational specialist degree.
So education is your thing. So, but how did you even get into the field of education? Like that's a lot of degrees in education. So what is your inspiration?
So it's real funny. I initially wanted to become a lawyer when I was an undergrad. And then I got to school and I was like, oh no, this is not happening. This is too much for me. And so I told my father, who is a retired high school principal, that I wanted to be a teacher. And he told me absolutely not. He said, I'm paying for 4 years. You got 4 years to get out and I'm done. I said, yes, sir. So that's why I ended up with that organizational communication degree. And I got out, I did some jobs here and there. And just like any father who is an educator, when I couldn't find a good job, he told me to go sub. And I did. And my first sub position was long-term, a kindergarten class. Their teacher quit on them at winter break during the winter play. Wow. And I took over the class for the rest of the year and I fell in love. And I became a kindergarten teacher after that.
Wow. Now, so kindergarten teacher, assistant principal, like talk a little bit about that journey. There's a leap there.
There is. I actually taught kindergarten for 12 years. And I always knew I wanted to be an educational leader. I think I have an aunt who was a college president and my father was an administrator. So I always knew I wanted to go that direction. I just didn't know, what my journey was going to look like doing that. But after about 11 years of teaching kindergarten, I went back to school to get my type 75 year license to become a principal. And actually left the kindergarten classroom for a year and became a MTSS, multi-tiered systems of support lead teacher, where I was working with kindergarten through 6th grade. And then that next year, I was offered a position at my former elementary school as their first assistant principal. That's how that happened.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. So going from now to being an assistant principal to now your journey to getting a PhD and Hampton University. So what made you say, okay, I'm about to keep going? What was the impetus for that?
Well, a lot of it, I won't lie, is a competition. My father has his doctorate too. And so when I was a little girl, I used to always tell him, I'm going to get 2 doctorates, but I'm going to make you call me Doctor, Dad. And so part of it is a little competition. But then the other part of it is the realities that exist in the educational realm. Although we're teaching young students how to be, good citizens and we're supposed to be teaching them how to treat each other right. As African Americans, we're not always treated equally in the education system. And so a lot of my motivation came from that, because even though I have 3 degrees and I'm well-versed in early education and I know leadership, I'm not always looked at as a leader because I am African American. And or my ideals will be taken and they'll be turned into someone else's ideas. Especially when they're good ideas and they work. And so it's really to gain that level of respect when it comes to my position in education is the biggest reason why I went back and was like, it's time.
No, that's resonating with me. It really, really is. So, and I have to ask, because it's resonating with me, as you see this happening, where folks are taking your ideas and folks are, not giving you credit or not giving you respect, how do you combat that? Because, I think many of us face that in the workforce, especially when we're in the minority, right? Yeah.
It's really delicate, because then also if you become argumentative, then you're also seen as the angry Black woman. So it's really a delicate balance where you say, I think that's what I just said, instead of saying I just said that. So it's a delicate balance, and a lot of times I find myself saying nothing at all, because for me, the outcome that's important is what's helping the students. I don't need the accolades, but when it comes to wanting to move higher in a system, you have to be seen as a person who has those ideas and has that knowledge. So it really is a delicate balance.
No, I absolutely agree. One thing too that I have found that's worked is when I see that happen, I reiterate who said it, because it could be another Black woman in or a Black man or a Latino man or someone else of color, and then a white person says it in the same meeting a few minutes later, and it's a great idea, but nothing was said when it was initiated. And I will go back and say, you know what? When so-and-so said it, I appreciate that he or she initiated that idea. And yes, I agree. I mean, so like, let's not forget that we're in the same conversation in the same space, right?
And that's really good. But how do you do that when it was you who came up with the idea?
Yeah.
So no one else is doing that for you.
Yep, that's exactly. And I think we have to look out for each other, right? Sometimes we're the only ones, but when we're not the only ones, we have to kind of have a pact it's not going to go down like that. And I've also struggled when it is me, because first it's a shock, right? Like, wait a minute, are you serious? Like, am I in the Twilight Zone here? Like, did you not just hear me say the same thing? Like, I said that. Like, wait, and now, I mean, I think the older I get, the less patience I have for it, to be honest. And so the kid gloves can come off and say, well, that's funny how you all heard it when he said it, but when I said it, like, and with levity, right? So it's not like but like, wow, you all. I'm glad everybody's paying attention now that he said it, because when I said it earlier, nobody said anything, right? And then it's like, oh yeah, you did say that. So it's the whole situation. So I understand.
It is. And then currently in the building that I work in, this is my second year in the building. I went from a district office position and I went back into the building as an assistant principal. And so the building that I'm currently in, there were no African Americans in the building until I came, and then we hired one other teacher. So there's only 2 of us there. One's a teacher and the other's in leadership. So it's really, yeah.
The imbalance. So as you decide, okay, I'm about to go into get my PhD, I'm going to Hampton University. Can you talk a little bit about some of the things that you've encountered and like where you are in your journey? I know we're going to get to what your dissertation is about too next, but like, can you just kind of highlight some of those spaces of your journey for us?
Yeah, and so before I decided where I was going to go, I wanted to really make sure that where I went had a good reputation, but also was going to have an impact on me. So, like I said, I got my master's from University of Phoenix. I didn't want to get a doctorate from University of Phoenix. A lot of people see online programs as easy programs. I wanted an institution with some history behind it. I wanted an institution with a name behind it. So, and then also because my dear husband is Black power all the way to the bone. I I wanted to experience an HBCU. So I did a lot of looking and a lot of searching for probably about 2 years. And I found out that Hampton had a great online program that was very rigorous. And when I tell you it was rigorous, those professors do not play. They don't care if you're online or not. So I settled on Hampton, and I applied, got accepted right away, and just kind of jumped into the journey. And where I'm at now is I've dealt with all of my coursework, and I'm in the throes of writing my dissertation and preparing for my proposal defense.
Nice. Now tell me this, was it a hard process? Just the application process? What does that look like for folks that are like, oh, maybe I'll do it, but I don't know about like applying. I don't know how to do that.
It wasn't a hard process. They ask you why you want to come there. I did a lot of research on a lot of the professors there. I found professors, I looked at their dissertation work and some of their other articles they had written to see what really resonated with me. And I used that in my writing to talk about why I wanted to learn under this professor. One of them, which is on my dissertation committee, Dr. Zena McGee. She's a methodologist and she's amazing, and I wanted to learn under her. And I leveraged that information in my writing, in my application writing. So it's really just researching, doing your due diligence as a learner to see where you want to go.
No, I think that's really good advice, because most people go to spaces to get PhDs that want to learn from the people that are in those spaces, right? They're in a particular field, they do a particular thing, they research with a critical lens, all of that. And so incorporating that, I think that's really important for any application. So that's really good advice.
Yeah. And I will say that another good piece of advice that I got from one of my professors who no longer works at the university, but she is chief of staff at North Carolina State, I believe. She told me that when I started writing, anything that I wrote needed to be about the topic that I wanted to write about. So when it came down to going back to get my dissertation started, I had already started writing my dissertation, and I just needed to start piecemealing some things together. So everything that I wrote had something to do with African-American students, kindergarten and pre-kindergarten education. And so everything I wrote, whether it was about in my history class, when I had to talk about the historical context behind something, I wrote about the historical context of early childhood education. Anything that I had to write about had to do with the topic that I had in mind at the time.
Nice. Now tell me, because you have 3 other degrees, what's the difference of like how much you have to read, how much you have to write, how much you like, what's the difference in getting a PhD and maybe getting a master's degree or undergrad degree?
So with my master's degree, it was a little difficult because it was new. It was a new subject. It was education. I came from a communications background. So it was a little difficult. You know, you had to learn those foundational things. But then when I got my EDS, it was more of applying what I knew to where I was working already. But I tell you, this PhD is work. You are reading articles all the time. The work is hard. It is the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life, but it's been very rewarding. And it really has helped me validate myself and my abilities as I navigate through the education system that I currently work in. So.
And now, when you say articles, can you talk about what that is? Like, what do you mean?
So, well, we call them articles. They're really not articles, but you're reading other people's dissertations. So usually you say article, you're like, oh, 3 to 5 pages. No, I'm talking hundreds of pages. I have probably 20 dissertations printed out on my desk at home right now. Because I was looking through other people's dissertations, looking at what instruments they used in their dissertations, because you have to make sure that your work is adding to the body of knowledge. You can't just duplicate something. I mean, you could duplicate something, but it still has to add to the body of knowledge that's never been there before. So you have to do your research on your topic. You have to know what everybody else has written. You have to know what everybody else is thinking and what the most researched area is around that topic. So it's a lot, but if you're passionate about it, which I'm very passionate about early childhood education, it makes it easier.
So since you kind of hinted at what your topic is and what you're researching, can you tell us a little bit more about that? And I know you might want to share screen during this part.
Yeah, I have a couple of slides. I'm going to share. Let me see if I probably should have looked at this before, but I have a couple of slides that I'd like to share. Let's see if this works.
Yep, I see you.
How do I get to
that? If you want to go to that little screen at the very bottom, looks like a screen at the bottom.
Thank you. I'm like, where is it?
Well, that's the widen it, and then to play the show is the other one to the left. Yep, right there.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So let me go back. The title of my dissertation is The Effect of Public Preschool Attendance on African American Kindergarten Educational Outcomes, a district level analysis. I currently work in U46, which is the second largest school district in Illinois outside of Chicago Public Schools, which I think is significant because it's having an impact on a larger audience of students. So I chose this topic because pre-K is also often the last thought about grade level when it comes to elementary education. And a lot of the literature right now that's out there focuses on curriculum alignment between preschool and K through 12. And then it also focuses on quality programming. So I wanted to look at a different aspect of preschool and how it impacts kindergarten outcomes, because pre-K is so vital to educational outcomes for all students. So in my study, I'm examining the educational outcomes of African-American students who attended the district pre-K program, which is state funded by the Illinois State Board of Education. And I wanted to find out the correlation between attendance and what their educational outcomes were in kindergarten, because a lot of times people look at, in research, they're looking at, oh, I went to kindergarten and preschool, and we want to know what your third grade outcomes were. I want to know what that immediate outcome is, how it's benefiting you immediately, not further down the line. And I want to do that because, as we all know, African-American students are underperforming when it comes to their other race counterparts. And I want to see if going to preschool is impacting these students in a positive way, especially when it looks at their other race counterparts, if that makes sense. So like I said earlier, when you're choosing a topic, you have to choose something that adds to the body of work. And so this study that I'm proposing to my school is unique because it's the only one that uses the Illinois mandated KIDS assessment instrument, which is mandated for kindergarten teachers to do the first 40 days of kindergarten. And it uses a representative sample of students in the state of Illinois by targeting that second largest school district in the state. And so these are my research questions. I won't read them to you because I know I hate being read to, but these are my research questions. There's 3 of them. And then of course they do break out into some other questions. It's just, it dives deeper into the data. I see you reading, that's why I'm pausing. Okay, and so part of doing your research is doing the literature review. And so my literature review focused on the historical framework of early childhood education, brain development of students, preschool benefits, and then the underperformance of African-American students historically. And then with my research methodology is a quantitative study, and I'll be using a t-test to look at all of the data that I get from the school district once it's collected, and making sure that it's confidential and the students are protected and things of that nature. So that's just a brief overview of my research.
Wow. Wow. That's, I cannot, I'm excited about that. So I've got so many questions from that. So I love to spend the bottom half of our time together to kind of talk a little bit about your research and invite other folks to ask questions. I know part of the dissertation journey is that you'll be doing this research, you will add to the body of knowledge, and you will have a defense, of this. And so this is more of a friendly conversation. It's defenses should be too. But tell me, as you go through the literature, what is being said about the underperformance of African-American students?
Well, a lot of the literature that talks about the underperformance of African-American students, it talks about home life, it talks about ACEs, which are those traumas that occur in life. But then they also talk about being culturally responsive and how classrooms aren't culturally responsive and teachers are not giving students in their classroom who are African-American the understanding and trying to learn about who they are culturally and include them in their classrooms. A lot of times you see us reading books and all the characters are Caucasian. Students want to see themselves. And so I know a lot of school districts have done an overhaul on the books that they read. In other states, they're banning certain books, which, talk about our history. I know one of the books that I kind of ran to as a child is being banned in other states, like Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry was one of my favorite books when I was a little girl. And it really talked about life as an African-American and our history. And so we need that in our classrooms to help our students feel like they belong.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Others, I invite other folks. I know I've been dominating the conversation, but I invite other folks to come on in. I see our good brother Bill has his hand raised. Please go right ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, Cretia. First thing I want to say, congrats on all the degrees and the hard work, and and just being part of I really love your topic also, because it seems like the data that you're going to get from it could actually have policy impacts and stuff like that. So I just have a couple questions. It would seem that, like when you were talking about looking at preschool programs that are run by the district, one thing I would guess is that maybe a preschool program at one school might be very better or very different than another school. So that's one question I have. And I think the other one is, I assume there's still some people in the community that might use private schools, like, free schools, like, somebody down the block, they have their own kind of preschool thing. Or is that not even a significant number?
Well, I think it is a significant number. I know in U46, you have to have, you're allowed into the program based on need, based on when they bring you in, they test you, see where you are academically. If you're very low, they allow you in the program and you're there for 3, 4, and 5. And so there are still a lot of people who attend private preschools. I chose not to use them or include them as part of those who would have attended preschool, because my focus really is the program at the school district. I want to know that if the program's quality, I want to know how it's impacting their students, because it's their students that are suffering as they go down the line, going from kindergarten, first, second, and third grade. The program there at U46 is one of the largest programs in the state. And they have what we call monitoring visits. And so the goal is that all programs within the school district, no matter what school you're at, provides that same quality education. So this will shine a light on that as well.
Great, thanks very much.
Thank you.
I also see that Brother Bashir had put something in the chat. It says, wait a minute, let me open it up. Whoever seeks knowledge with true sincerity, Ibrahim bin Aham said, whoever seeks knowledge with true sincerity in order to benefit the servants of Allah with it and benefit himself. Being unknown will be more beloved to him than being arrogant. This is what will cause him to increase in humility with regard to himself, exertion with regard to worship, fear from Allah, longing for him, and humbleness in front of the people, not caring for what goes on in the day and night of this worldly life. Thank you for adding that. I see that Imam Tariq has his hand up. Go right ahead, Imam Tariq.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
So thank you so much, Sister Cretia, and I'm grateful to be able to listen to your research interest and the direction that you're moving in. I want to go back a little bit and ask about somebody who will be getting my a doctoral program in a couple of months, as a matter of fact. What were some of the things that were important to you in terms of supports and also in terms of a learning community that you found throughout your journey just far, and some of the things that possibly attracted you to Hampton?
Absolutely. So as far as learning supports, my father is a huge support to me. He's been down this road before. He gives me good advice. Once I got into the program, I was able to get to know some of my cohort mates, and we kind of clung together. It's a group of 7 of us, and so we call ourselves the Avengers. And we have a tight-knit chat group. Everything we go through, we are texting each other all the time. So that has been super helpful. And as far as what attracted me to Hampton, I actually used to live in Virginia. And so I knew about the school. It's a huge rivalry between Hampton and Norfolk State, 2 HBCUs down in the Hampton Roads area. But my biggest thing was I wanted to learn under African-American teachers, African-American women who were experts in the field, that I could, basically sit at their feet and just take their knowledge. And it was the most remarkable thing when I went to my first class and there's a sea of people who look just like you. It was the most amazing thing I've ever experienced before in my life. Everybody's cameras on, everybody is engaged, and they all look just like you. It's not, it's like something I've never experienced before. And so I'm going to assume most people, unless they went to an HBCU, haven't experienced that either. So that helped me know that I made the right choice.
We have a few questions along those same lines in the chat.
Thank you.
Oh, you late with that, thank you, but
I know.
I
couldn't get my mute button.
It's all good. I'm just messing with you. Did you use references to get into your PhD program, or former professors, or how important were they?
I didn't, let me think about that. I think I did use some former professors from National Louis. Oh, and let me just, I would be remiss not to say this. So let me back up a little bit. I also have to say that Dr. Lionel Allen has been super instrumental in helping me guide through this journey. Like, we talk about it when I'm able to come to Juma. I have his number, I text him sometimes. So I would be remiss if I didn't say that as well. So I just wanted to put that out there. But as far as references, I might have put down a couple of professors, but a lot of them were like work references and with what I do every day. And I think they wanted to see, you know, just how I live my life, and if I'm an ethical person, if the institution wants their name attached to who I am as an individual.
Has there ever been a time where you're like, why did I do this? I'm not going to be able to finish this. This is ridiculous. Like, where you just felt deflated in the process. And can you talk about that time and talk about how you kind of weathered that?
So there's been a couple of times like that. It's just so much. Right now, for work, I drive an hour to an hour from work. And then, you know, having to come home after being up at 5 to get to work on time and come home and write some more. And, you know, and sometimes life gets to life and you're like, well, I'm going through this at home, and school really don't care what you're going through at home. So I had to remember why I was doing this. I know that my purpose in life is to help educate children, and hopefully to help educate teachers to educate children in the near future. It's a dream that God gave me, and he told me to go teach those children. And that's what I did, because I was going to change my major the next day had I not had that dream. So I try to hold on to that and hold on to the passion that I have for the kids. And honestly, that's what gets me up and getting to work every day too. So.
That's powerful. Another question from the chat. How was and is being Muslim impact your studies and attitudes of other people?
I don't think it's impacted at all. Nobody really has asked me that question. Or they don't have a thought of who I am religiously. It really hasn't been a concern of theirs, but I think Muslim is about integrity, and I try to live my life in a way that's pleasing to Allah every day.
Yes, no, absolutely, absolutely.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
May I make a comment?
Please.
Thank you. Cretia, I appreciate what you told us about your approach to gaining your PhD. And the comment that I made in the chat, when we started this, when you started this conversation, it came to my mind in the Quran about gaining useful knowledge. And I was recently in a conversation with my daughter, with a young lady that was telling her, hey, because she called her mom. She said, "Ma, you can go online now. You can get any kind of degree you can. You can get it in 3 days." You know, and so we was discussing this, and you know, many people go get degrees just to advance their careers, not with the intent to get the knowledge for it to be a benefit for others. They say, I need a doctor's degree, you know, to advance, you know, my career, or just to have the label of a doctor. So when we started this conversation, when you started this conversation, it hit my mind, useful not, and I know you mentioned Phoenix College, and I was in conversation with a guy that I know that is a recruiter for Phoenix. And I asked him the question. I knew about Phoenix. I worked in the educational field in student loans. And I knew some of these online schools had problems. So I asked him about Phoenix. I said, what, you know, is it a good school? Is it accredited? Is it a quality? And he said, yeah. And I appreciate what you said too, in researching a program that was both quality and also the fact that it was an African-American school. And we know that African-American schools have produced many of our great leaders in the world today. So I appreciate you know, what you're doing and what you have presented to us. One other fact too, you know, getting knowledge, it's work. I mean, even reading the Quran in the morning, I get up. I said, I got to read this, and not only read it, but study it and try to get an understanding for it, for myself and for others. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, as we wrap up our time together, I want to ask, what could the community do to support you in this journey? I'll share a piece of advice that helped me when I was going through in my journey. Dr. Mumbadi told me, it was one of those days I was like, man, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't feel like doing this anymore. This is ridiculous. It's just too much. Really? A 30-page paper? Like, I don't have time for this, right? And she told me, she said, well, your degree is not for you. Your degree is for the community, because we will all benefit, all benefit from the degree. And I was like, yeah. And so many people helped in that journey. And so I wanna just put out the question, as folks that are listening to you right now, how can we support you in your educational journey?
So prayers are always welcome. They're always needed. If you ever hear of any great scholarships, because school is not cheap. And once you get to this level, a lot of times you max out your student loans and you're left to pay for it by yourself. So if you hear of any great scholarships, that would be welcome information. And really that's it, just prayers and information.
Well, you all heard it here, prayers and information. And we look forward to, when are you slated to finish? Like, around what semester?
I am supposed to graduate on Mother's Day of 2024. All
right. I love it. So mark your calendars. We want to celebrate all of the accomplishments and wins. And thank you for sharing your journey with us, for offering us some words of advice, some inspiration, some information. And certainly if we find those scholarships, and we will certainly pass them on. And I ask that all of us keep you in our du'as, that you are successful, that everything that you want to do for early childhood, both in your district and throughout the nation, that your work has that impact for our African-American babies.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Doctor. I'm gonna go ahead and say it, Dr. Cretia.
I love it. It's gonna be real one day.
Inshallah. All right. Thank you, family.
Thank you.
Thank you.